Our opening words this morning are by Ian Riddle. We gather today in the presence of the old story of death defeated by emptiness, of hope and newness triumphant over fear and separation. We come, hearts heavy with pain and anxiety, spirits flattened by exhaustion and apathy, vision darkened by strife and violence. We come seeking connection and love in this place of community. May the old Easter story of hope and rebirth lighten our hearts and make us glad in the presence of each other's love. May our spirits be joyful as we worship together today. Jan will light the chalice here in the sanctuary. I invite you to light your own chalice and place it where it can be seen by all of us if you're able. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and the community. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Jan and Mary as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. So let's all sing the opening hymn, Lo, the Days of Days is Here, number 269.
Lo, the day of days is here. Alleluia. Festival of hope and cheer. Alleluia. At the soft wind's genial breath. Alleluia. Nature wakes from seeming death. Alleluia. Fields are smiling in the sun. Alleluia. Loosened streamlets seaward run. Alleluia. Tender blade and leaf appear. Alleluia. 'Tis the springtide of the year. Alleluia. Lo, the Easter tide is here. Alleluia. Music thrills the atmosphere. Alleluia. Join you people all and sing. Alleluia. Love and praise and thanksgiving. Alleluia.
Thank you. Welcome and good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the fourth principle. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. As responsible religious seekers, We recognize that we are privileged to be free, to have resources to pursue life beyond mere survival, to continually search for truth and meaning, to exist beyond bonds of dogma and oppression, and to wrestle freely with truth and meaning as they evolve. My name is Judy Butler, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning under these challenging circumstances. If you are a guest and would like to introduce yourself, please raise your Zoom hand and unmute yourself when Susan calls your name.
Excuse me, I'm not sure. If we have any guests who would like to introduce themselves, just wave your hand. Rena.
Right, Rena Bever and Mike Bever. We're in Illinois, Friends of John and Sue Loring. Glad to be here.
Great, good morning. And it looks like that's all the people who would like to introduce themselves. So Judy, back to you.
All right. Excuse me. If you're not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all our activities. And please check out What's Happening, a weekly e-blast sent to all our members and friends. This is a great way to keep up with the latest news in our community. And as a reminder, if you wish to see this or any of our past Zoom services, again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider becoming a member of our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a board member if you're interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone on this beautiful Easter Sunday. Let us now sing the affirmation.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help, and to help, and to help one another.
Thank you. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your Zoom hand by clicking on the raise hand button in the reactions icon. When Susan calls your name, please unmute yourself, then speak.
I believe Jan in the sanctuary has an announcement.
I do. On behalf of the Scholarship Committee, we're thrilled to announce that we have raised $2,250, which is just phenomenal. Thank you for your generosity. And we're going to have a cutoff date of April 15th. If you want to donate, don't let that amount scare you. We'll take more. So April 15th, send your checks to the post office box, and in the memo, write scholarship. Thank you so much.
Randy, I believe you have an announcement.
Yes, I do. Good morning, everyone. In your email later today, you will find a survey about coming back into the sanctuary for in-person services. Please take a moment, and it will just take a small moment to fill it out, just 2 basic questions. and then submit it back per the instructions. And we would appreciate your doing that so that the reopening committee can take your input and feedback to make to help develop our strategies for a return. So we're hoping we can do this and make it happen soon. Thank you.
And I would like to announce that we're still looking for someone to coordinate the rewriting of the operations manual. Randy has agreed to do this. And if there's anybody else who would like to work on that with him, please contact myself or Randy. We do need to get our operations manual up to snuff as soon as we can, now that the bylaws are done. So thank you for that. And then Dolores, you have an announcement. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, tomorrow, Monday, there's a women's group at 2 to 3:30. And if you would like to join it, just send Diane DeMarco a email and she'll send you the link to get in. So hope to see you there. Bye.
Thank you, Dolores. Lou, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Good morning and happy Easter to everyone. Men's group meets tomorrow at 10 on Zoom, and they will send out an invitation, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. And Kat, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Hello, I don't see Nancy here today. So I'm just going to say, I do believe this Wednesday is the Moving Towards Racial Justice session online. I think we're a little late getting the Zoom invite out, but it'll be in this upcoming newsletter. And everyone's invited. We're going to be discussing the book that we read called The Fire This Time. It's a compilation of short stories and different things. And you don't have to have read the book to be there. You can just come and listen. You can add things as you wish. Would really love to see you guys all there this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Be looking for the Zoom invite on the newsletter.
Thank you, Kat. And though looks like those are all of our announcements. So I'll give it back to you, Judy.
All right. Next week, Nancy 3 Hoffman will present the Umbrella Cover Museum, celebrating the mundane. We take this time to celebrate all those who are having a birthday this month. Birthdays are a special moment. It is a time in which you feel as if the world is taking a moment to celebrate you into being, just like it was on your day of birth. If you have a birthday this month, please raise your Zoom hand when Susan calls your name, unmute yourself, and please reveal your special date.
Dolores.
Yeah, my date is the 26th, the same as Carol Burnett's birthday.
Yay!
Somehow that figures. And Stan? Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Okay. April 2nd was April's birthday.
What?
And let me guess, that's where you got your name.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm going to give it back to Judy. Happy birthday.
All right. Thank you, Andy, for lighting the birthday candle. This birthday candle honors all the friends and family members of this community who are also celebrating birthdays this month. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life. But please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. The collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are also deeply felt in this community. The first reading is the original conclusion for the earliest known gospel, Mark chapter 16. And when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Salome, bought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, they went to the tomb where the sun had risen. And they were saying to each other, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the door of the tomb?" And looking up, they saw that the stone was rolled back, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were amazed. And he said to them, "Do not be amazed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen, but he is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him, as he told you." And they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and an astonishment had come upon them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Let us join in a time of meditation, of prayer and silence. Let us seek the quiet and the calm, laying aside our struggles. And in the silence, may there be a reverence in our hearts, a thankfulness within our spirit, and a deepened understanding of the meaning of our lives. Let us enter the stillness. Please come back now. John Loring will now read the second reading.
Good morning and happy Easter to everyone. The second reading comes from a book by Nikos Kazantzakis called Report to Greco. Kazantzakis is from the island of Crete, a modern writer, 20th century writer, probably best known for his book, Zorba the Greek. And in this book, Report to Greco, in this reading, he talks about a great cry which calls life forward, a terrifying cry. And one of the central figures in this reading is the centaur, that mythological creature, half human, half horse. So here we go. Blowing through heaven and earth, and in our hearts and the heart of every living thing is a gigantic breath, a great cry, which we call God. Plant life wished to continue its motionless sleep next to stagnant waters, but the cry leaped up within it and violently shook its roots. Away, let go of the earth, walk. Had the tree been able to think and judge, it would have cried, I don't want to. What are you urging me to do? You are demanding the impossible. But the cry, without pity, kept shaking its roots and shouting, away, let go of the earth, walk. It shouted in this way for thousands of eons, and lo, as a result of desire and struggle, life escaped the motionless tree and was liberated. Animals appeared, worms, making themselves at home in water and mud. We're just fine here, they said. We have peace and security. We're not budging. But the terrible cry hammered itself pitilessly into their loins. Leave the mud, stand up, give birth to your betters. We don't want to, we can't. You can't, but I can. Stand up. And lo, after thousands of eons, the human emerged, trembling on still unsolid legs. The human being is a centaur. His equine hooves are planted in the ground, but his body, from breast to head, is worked on and tormented by the merciless cry. He has been fighting again for thousands of eons to draw himself like a sword out of his animalistic scabbard. He is also fighting, this is his new struggle, to draw himself out of his human scabbard. Man calls in despair, where can I go? I have reached the pinnacle. Beyond is the abyss. And the cry answers, I am beyond. Stand up. All things are centaurs. If this were not the case, the world would rot into inertness and sterility.
Thank you, John. Please join in singing the hymn, Loveliest of Trees, number 98.
Loveliest of trees, the cherry now is hung with bloom along the bough and stands about the woodland ride, wearing white for Eastertide. Now of my threescore years and 10, 20 will not come again, and take from 70 springs a score, leaving me just 50 more. And since to look at things in bloom, 50 springs is little room. About the woodlands I will go, sing the cherry hung with snow.
Thank you. Today's talk is titled Easter Centric, to be delivered by John Loring. The talk covers the following principles. Principle 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. And principle 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. As part-time residents of Cambria, John and Sue Loring have been long-term friends and participants in our Unitarian community. Though professionally, much of John's life was spent in architecture and education, somehow word got out way back. He had worked with the National Council of Churches on the United Nations Plaza in New York, as well as with a local church parish in Santa Barbara. John has a doctorate in religious studies from the School of Theology at Claremont, California, a school that was part of the Claremont College complex. Therefore, it seemed appropriate to invite him to speak today on Easter Sunday. He was asked to speak specifically on an Easter-centric topic, and so that is the title that he has chosen for his talk, Easter-centric. I give you John Loring.
First of all, Judy, it's a real honor to be here with you today. Okay. Back in the day, when I was a graduate student at Claremont, one of my professors by the name of Rolf Knierim taught in the area of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. Passionate about his subject, he was recognized as a leading scholar internationally. So let me give you a quick illustration of his work from one of his lectures one morning. He was talking about the second creation story in the book of Genesis. You know, the one where Adam and Eve break one of the rules of life in the garden and they are expelled. Knierim said that the essential point of this story is that nature, the garden, has limits, and that when these limits are violated, nature will strike back. Adam and Eve exceeded the limits, and major problems resulted for them. Knierim went on to say that this is a phenomenon we know all too well today, ecologically. When we violate the limits of life through pollution, climate change, and other things, when we exceed the limits of what the environment allows, nature, the planet, will react, strike back. We see this clearly now, but back in 1971, it was a pretty refreshing way to look at the Genesis story. Now, what was notable about Professor Knierim, with his heavy German accent and his enthusiastic yet sometimes intimidating personality, and with his vast knowledge of Jewish theology and wisdom, recognized worldwide, what was notable was that he had once been a member of the Hitler Youth. During World War II, Knierim, at age 15, had joined the Hitler Youth. And towards the end of the war, as you may know, when things were getting desperate for Germany, the Hitler Youth members were drafted into the army and sent to the front lines to fight. Well, it wasn't long before Knierim and his comrades were captured by the Allies. And while they were in the custody of some Soviet soldiers, they were lined up before a firing squad and about to be executed. An American Army sergeant nearby abruptly intervened, aborted their pending execution, and saved the lives of this small group of teenage boys, Hitler Youth. Knierim found out shortly after that this United States Army sergeant who had saved them was Jewish a Jew. And at that point in his young life, he decided to dedicate himself to learning about and teaching the history and wisdom that came out of the Jewish biblical tradition. One moment he had been hopelessly at the threshold of death, and in the next moment he had been saved. These moments for him were life transforming. There are three things to notice about this story. First, Kniram's situation initially seemed hopeless. Second, his salvation, that word carries a little bit too much baggage. Let's say the saving of his life came as a gift. Third, because of this gift, some kind of response was in order, and he was deeply inspired to change. Now, on this Easter Sunday, let's think back to those early followers of Jesus from 2,000 years ago. I would not begin to equate Kniram's experience with that of Jesus' followers in the time of the crucifixion and its aftermath. However, there are some interesting parallels. First, upon the crucifixion itself, all seemed lost to Jesus' followers. The reason for their very existence was about to vanish, not physically, like the teenage Rolf Kniram, but spiritually. Their friend and teacher, their rabbi, was being executed. Like Kniram, all seemed hopeless. In fact, in his gospel, Mark concludes simply with Mary and Mary Magdalene and Salome arriving at the empty tomb, being told they will see Jesus again, and then fleeing, trembling, astonished, and afraid. That was the end of the earliest gospel. Nothing more. But then, shortly thereafter, something happened. It was not as instant as the American Army sergeant stepping in to save Kniram and his friends, but over a short period, something of a life-saving nature was felt. It seems clear that the early followers experienced something profound, something that was so radically life-transforming that the seeds of a whole new religious tradition were planted. So what happened? Anybody know? I sure don't know. But it does seem that something did happen. As Einstein said, the universe is not only more mysterious than we imagine, it is more mysterious than we can imagine. In any event, those early Christians and gospel writers sought to give expression to their experience in the later Gospels in ever more fantastic stories of supernatural events that occurred following Jesus' death. But that's not what I want to talk about. I'd like to take a more natural approach and reflect on a few aspects of what we have already looked at. First, one thing to notice again is that the experience of the early followers, their salvation, came as a gift, just as Kniram's did. Before, in each case, all seemed lost. And then unexpectedly, there was the gift of new life. This transformation was not the result of some self-help, do-it-yourself technique, something that might be popular in today's culture. The change came as a gift. The next thing to notice is that a response to the gift was in order. There had to be a move beyond the immediate situation, the status quo, the life as it had been. In Knirim's case, he decided to dedicate himself to the teaching about the Jewish faith, which he did until his untimely accidental death a few years ago at age 90. How the early followers responded to their gift of new life. I keep bumping this thing, sorry. How the early followers responded to their gift of new life is much more complex. And in any case, their responses over the early centuries led to a multifaceted world religion. A variety of paths inspired by Jesus' life and teachings have been taken since. So let's look at a couple of different examples. Some have taken a path more oriented to social justice. Recent examples of people on this path would include those in the social gospel movement emerging in the late 19th century, people like Albert Schweitzer, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., the liberation theologians of Latin America, Desmond Tutu, Pope Francis, and many others. Unitarianism, as we know, is very much on this path. Others have chosen to embrace the mystical side of Christianity. Early on, the Coptic Gospel of Thomas gave witness to this, and since then, so many others, from Meister Eckhart to William Blake, Hildegard of Bingen, on down to T.S. Eliot, Thomas Merton, and the former Episcopal priest and Zen student, Alan Watts, and so many others. And of course, there are any number of other paths and combinations of paths. Personally, I like to give attention to those people who have chosen to respond to Christianity through the arts. Think about the sacred music of the great composers, from the times of the medieval Gregorian chants on to Bach, Handel, Mozart, Verdi, on down to Ellington. One work inspiring and evolving into another. Think about art itself, from the early Christian mosaics of a place like Ravenna, Italy, on to Giotto in the Middle Ages, the great artists of the Renaissance, Leonardo, El Greco, and beyond, even down to the surreal worlds of Salvador Dali and Frida Kahlo. Think about architecture, from the incredible Hagia Sophia of 6th century Turkey, the great Gothic cathedrals of Europe, Brunelleschi's magnificent dome in Florence, Michelangelo in St. Peter's, the churches of Sir Christopher Wren in London, awash in divine light, down to the 20th century, with the work of Corbusier at Romsham, and the many churches of Frank Lloyd Wright, including the Unitarian Meeting House in Madison, Wisconsin. One inspiration, one transformation leading to another and another and another. This is a dynamic process. But once again, I've gotten ahead of myself, way beyond the essential point I'd like to make. So let's back up a moment and look back at Knirim and those early followers of Jesus. I think a key point is that after having received the gift of new life, They had to respond. There was no way they could remain in life as it was. New possibilities were opened, and in their free will, they had to choose how to respond. I think this is at the heart of the Easter experience. There is something about the nature of any moment of our lives, our gift of life, out of which we are called to respond. Remaining in the status quo leads to rigor mortis. There is something about the nature of the universe that gives life and urges life on to greater things. And of course, Charles Darwin had a little bit to say about this. In his vivid and powerful words, the Greek novelist Nikos Kazantzakis, who I read, writes of the cry, the breath, which calls us forward. His words are terrifying, perhaps not unlike the experience of Mary and Mary Magdalene and Salome at the empty tomb of Jesus. Other modern thinkers have used other words and ideas. John Dewey talked about choosing to move on to greater ideals of life. The psychologist Abraham Maslow proposed a model for moving through several life stages towards self-actualization. That is, pressure towards fuller and fuller being. Alfred North Whitehead and other process philosophers, along with the proponents of natural theology, explored and speculated about that which calls us to new and richer possibilities of our being. And they agree that the response to the ever-present gift of life involves participating in an ongoing, evolving, dynamic process that can lead to greater richness, heightened consciousness, more sensitive love, and expanded freedom. And for many Christians, the one, the energy, the power inherent in this dynamic process that calls is named God. And as John said in the last of the Gospels, God is love. The divine gift of new life calls for a response. And again, I think this is about as Easter-centric as I can get.
Thank you, John. Normally, at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of the methods shown on the slideshow. These methods are posted in the newsletter and on the UUCC website. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. Excuse me. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize is central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving by sending us an offering. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every tongue.
Please join in singing the closing hymn, A Promise Through the Ages Rings, number 344.
A promise through the ages rings that always, always something sings, not just in May, in Finch-filled bower, but in December's coldest hour. A note of hope sustains us all. A life is made of many things, bright stars, bleak years, and broken rings. Can it be true that through all things there always, always something sings? The universal song of life. Entombed within our deep despair, our pain seems more than we can bear. But days shall pass, and nature knows that deep beneath the winter snow, a rose lies curled and hums its song. For something always, always sings. This is the message Easter brings. From deep despair and perished things, a green shoot always, always springs. And something always, always sings.
Let us now recite the valediction. The flame of this chalice will no longer burn today, but the light of the flame within our hearts continues to shine brightly, illuminating the love felt in our community. And please extinguish your chalice at home now. After the benediction, please click on the gallery view button in the upper right corner of your screen, but please remain muted. Susan will call on you when you raise your Zoom hand. John will now give us the benediction.
The benediction today comes from Tom Shade, who is a retired Unitarian minister from Worcester, Massachusetts. My friends, there is a power at work in the universe. It works through human hands, but it was not made by human hands. It is a creative, sustaining, and transforming power and we can trust that power with our lives. It will sustain us whenever we take a stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. Trust in that power. We are together held by that power. Amen.